Okay, welcome to Mind Games TV, episode 86, and today I'm going to answer some more questions, I guess, from Twitter. Remember, you can use the hashtag AskWeldon to get your question on the show. I'm going to make a vlog also today about Worlds and TSM, so look out for that content in that video. It's not going to be part of this show because it's like a separate thing, but why don't we dive right into it? Okay, so the first question is from @AK Poland, and he or she asks, "High ELO friends say I have an advanced team mindset, but I need to play down to low ELO mindset to get out of ELO hell. Thoughts?" No, not really. You just need to play more games. If you have if you play a very macro-oriented game, and you know where you need to be on a map, then you will consistently be in the right place at the right time, and you kind of pull your team to you. But if you're trying to force those kind of team plays, like playing to Baron, playing to Dragon at the right times, a lot of times in low ELO, you won't end up pulling your team to you, and then your team will be doing something, and you'll be at the objective, sitting there waiting for them, like, where are you, guys? So there's two things that I recommend. One, consider the power of simply pushing. So a lot of times if you dominate your lane, you can just shove it all the way into the Nexus turret and win the game. And so consider avoiding some of the team play aspects and just abusing the people who are weak in the game, which are the people that you're beating. The other thing that I recommend, or find the weak point and just constantly dive them over and over again. That's a really good one. The other thing I recommend is to understand what you want to be doing, but then always group. Be the first one to group. A lot of times the team that is grouped in solo queue will win, and the team that is not grouped will not win. So actually tell this to the team, to pro teams too. When you're training, it's really good to allow yourself to be where is optimal, where you optimally want the play to be. But if you're actually executing in the game and you want to win it, it's far more important to execute than it is to do the right play or to set up or to be in the right place at the right time. It's way more important to actually have the execution. So you just have to move. You just have to go to your team and be there. Okay, really good question. The second question is from @rumsnacks, and he asks, "How do you still improve when you don't have much time to actually play? Because I only have time for 1 or 2 games a day." So I tested this, and I did 1 or 2 games a day. Actually, I did more like 2 games a day for 3 months, and I went from Gold 2 to Plat 3 in that section when I was limiting myself to 2 games a day. So it's possible to improve. You have to be more concise about it. You have to have a plan, spend time. Also, I recommend focusing on just one champion and spend time learning it, because if you distribute your learning across many different matchups, remember when you learn a champion, you have to learn everything that champion plays into and how to play with different compositions. Let's say I'll just use my example. I was playing Talon. Let's say I'm playing Talon in a team with 2 assassins. That's different. And then playing Talon in a team with a tank, or a team with no tank, or a team with a range support, or a team with a melee support. So it's really important to play your champion in all the situations, to know how you should play the team fight, how you should engage. And then let's say you play against a team of 3 tanks. What do you build versus a team of all squishies? What do you build? So these kinds of things are just knowledge. You have to learn. You can learn it by studying it, you can learn it by surmising it, you can learn it by visualizing it and then doing it, but it's way easier to focus on one subset or type of champions in order to do that. So focus on that, focus on one position, one type of champions, play that type of champion in multiple positions on the map so that you can still learn even when you have the wrong draft, even when you're playing the wrong position, and then keep all of your VODs and just have watch them for your warm-up, so you remember what it is that you want to do in the game as you go in. Don't have a warm-up game, okay? Go into the first game and treat it super seriously. Put a lot of pressure on yourself for that first game, and don't think of it as a warm-up game, because it's not. It's your 1 or 2 games. So that pressure at first will inhibit you. Your hands will shake. You'll get maybe sweaty. You'll mess up the first few things. But then what you'll notice is you start to learn to cope with that pressure, and it actually makes you perform better in your training game. Good question. Okay, next question is from Jonas Hansen, HANSEN1, and They ask, why don't you see any girls in LOL? Are there rules to separate boys and girls or something physical, mental? No, there's no rules, and there's not really anything physical or mental. There's a little bit of neurobiological difference. There's a little bit of physiology difference in terms of how women as a whole assess risk. And it doesn't really have an impact on gameplay, aside from the fact that they might be able to predict plays better than men, predict risk better than men, but it does have an impact on what they choose to do for their career. So there was a study on this in politics, actually, and it was behavioral economics. So the study of human behavior with economic principles to try to uncover a trend in behavioral differences between gender. And what they found was that women were more accurate at assessing risk than men. So in an example I can give for this is that, let's say there's a race in Wisconsin, and there's like an 80% chance that the incumbent, the person who is already holding the political chair, so let's say there's a race for Senate, there's an 80% chance that person will win the race. A man will just say, God, bleh, I'm just going to run and take that 20% chance. Whereas a woman will be like, 20% chance versus I could do something else with my time. I'm going to assess that risk accurately, realize there's no point to this, and peace out, and do something more useful with my time. Now this is on aggregate, remember, this isn't on the individual level. This is like when they look at gender as a system. And so one of the places they notice this is in the stock market. Women are, by and large, as a gender, more accurate at assessing risk in the stock market because it's the same kind of biological advantage that they have that is functioning in both systems. So if you look at like the top accuracy, there's like a report that comes out every year of like the most accurate traders, and it's dominated at the top by women. So why don't we see any girls in LoL? Because we don't see any girls in LoL, so the risk is very high. Like you could put in tons and tons of effort to try to get this career, and then it won't happen. It won't work, and you will waste all that time. Massive investment of wasted time. So how do you mitigate this in a system? Well, one thing is we had the same problem in music where women were not getting into symphonies. And so one thing happened, we created blind auditions where you put the person who's auditioning behind a curtain. So all of a sudden the number of women who were getting accepted into positions skyrocketed because people couldn't see they were women, so they didn't have this like uncontrollable bias against them when they were doing the audition. And then also more women thought that they would have a shot, so more women chose to pursue music as a career at a high level and gave it a go. So we could do that in esport. It's pretty easy actually in esport, more so than any other sport, because you can blind audition all the way up to like the ladder is objective. It's like you're either on top of the ladder or you're not. You're either good or you're not. So we start with the ladder, and then from the ladder we can figure out a way to do blind auditioning with teams, up until the point where you're checking for fit in terms of like personality fit, which is really important in esport because there's no such thing as a sub. Okay, so the next question is from Xpatoyk. So Xpatoyk, and they ask, how do you help players after a match like Albus Nox Luna versus Rox? What can you say to them if they have 2 more matches? So I think this is maybe from the first week of groups when Albus Nox Luna and Rox had a really like slugfest game, and then there were important matches afterwards. Or maybe it was from the second week when they had them the same day. It doesn't really matter what you say to them between that game if you haven't trained them to hear it. So what you should say to somebody between a game is the words that you have trained them to hear between the game. And I'll give an example. I was working with this coach once who really wanted to deliver this like super motivational speech like they see in a movie. And they were like, oh, I want to motivate my players, and they go out on their field of justice and they just crush it like in all those football movies. But that's not how it works. So what he did was he spent 2 weeks preparing his speech, and then he delivered it in that 20 seconds in between, the champ select and the game, and nothing happened. Because words have no power outside of the emotional attachment that we give them. So you have to build up the power of those words over the course of 3, 6, 8, 9 months by using them in the proper place and the proper time to create a reality and a narrative that gives it value. And then if you say those words before a match, you can have an impact on how they think and remember their habits during that match, because you were doing it all split long or all year long, and it means something to them. Like it has an impact on what they hear. But if you just say random stuff, it doesn't really matter. So what can you say if they have 2 more matches? Nothing if you haven't already been preparing to tell them stuff. And if you have no emotional connection so that your words have no strong meaning. Okay. The final question is from Creative Meni, Creative Menni, and they ask, what do you think of letting pro players meditate between games? It would refresh their state of mind. Well, I mean, I don't think it has anything to do with letting. Maybe you mean making players meditate between games? I mean, they can do it if they want to. I don't think it really matters, because the impact of mindfulness, in my opinion, towards sport performance is a long-term thing. It's the neurological changes we see in the brain after extended mindfulness training that actually has an impact. So every single day when you do mindfulness and you're slightly more refreshed, you're slightly more focused, and your brain handles stress slightly better and more resiliently, all of that adds up over the long run to create more opportunities for the athlete and more growth and more performance increase day by day by day by day, so that at the end you're just better. So on game day, whether or not you meditate between game, if you never meditated before and then you meditate, it doesn't matter. If you meditate all the time and then you forget to meditate, it also doesn't matter, unless it's something that you use to like reset, in which case, sure, do it if you want. Otherwise, don't worry about it. Yeah, so that's the show for today. I actually lost the second half of the show because it stopped recording, and then I had to go back in and re-record it, so the last 2.5 answers are kind of short because I've already gone through them, and I don't remember many of the details that I talked about the first time, but you can check out down below. I'll release the original audio of question 2.5, which is the second half of the girls in esport question, and then 4 and 5. 3.5, 4 and 5. And yeah, check that out if you want. And make sure you check out my sponsors. I don't have sponsors, but I do have my own stuff, which is the MAC program. Speaking of meditation, MAC program is 47 days of mindfulness sessions combined with teaching of how it is that you should orient your thinking around the values that you play by and the values that you live by in order to have like more resilient, focused, concentrated improvement in your craft, whether it's League of Legends or college studies. And 5-minute journal, which is probably my most used tool in terms of things that I use in my life to accomplish cool stuff, and that I use on teams. And you can find a link to that down below. And then my mailing list, where I like to share whatever it is that I find every week that I think is awesome and that I think is useful. So sign up, and I'll see you guys next time. Hey guys, I just want to encourage you to follow me on Snapchat so you can keep track of all of the cool adventures that I have in places like Korea, where we're training right now, and so that you can ask me questions and follow along with kind of behind the scenes of high performance coaching.